Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Well, he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. He's a real athlete, so give him your respect. He's got intensity, integrity, intelligence too. Oh, it's true, it's damn true. So if he ever finds you and you're chanting you suck, then he'll douse you in dairy with his big milk truck. And with one angle slam, he'll lay you out on the floor. So listen up, it's time to go. It's the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, this is Kurt Angle, and welcome to the Kurt Angle Show. On today's episode, we'll be doing a watch-along to my Ironman match against Shawn Michaels in 2005, one of the greatest programs I've ever been involved in. But first, I want to introduce to you my co-host, Conrad Thompson. How you doing today, Conrad?
Man, I'm excited to be here, but I think you've undersold it. This isn't just one of the best programs you were involved in. It's one of the best programs of all time. When people talk about their Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, their favorite wrestlers of all time, yourself and Shawn Michaels are on more of those than you'd imagine. And it's crazy to think you only wrestled 3 times. You would have assumed two greats like that, man, they're going to wrestle 100 times. That's not the case. But we thought, what better way to break down and maybe a follow-up effort, if you will, from WrestleMania 21, which was one of our first episodes, actually, than to watch the Ironman match here from October 3rd, 2005, that happened on Monday Night Raw. You know, it's crazy for me to think about in hindsight. There were only 3 matches. Where does Shawn rank in terms of your favorite opponent all time? Is he number 1?
You know what? Overall, with everything, like I'm talking Shawn Michaels across the board, charisma, chops, in-ring ability, athleticism, look, he had it all more than anybody else. The only one that was actually better than him in the ring was Chris Benoit.
Well, it's interesting that we only saw it a handful of times, because it does feel like if you've got these two, you know, arguably the greatest wrestler alive, like if people in that era said, well, I think Shawn Michaels is, and other people said, well, I think Kurt Angle is, I don't think those guys could even argue. They'd say, well, I'll give you that. But it didn't happen very often, just the 3 times. That's always been fascinating to me. So I'm glad we're going to watch another one here. I know we did the WrestleMania 21 match, which people still talk about, but this Ironman match doesn't feel like it gets talked about as often as, say, a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam. So I'm glad we get to highlight it. But I want to highlight an interesting interview quote that you gave the Peoria Journal. This line in particular stood out. I've wrestled everybody on SmackDown more than once. I love wrestling the Eddie Guerreros and Rey Mysterios and guys like that. But there are guys on Raw that I haven't wrestled in years or have never wrestled. I would like to make a move and have a chance to be on the franchise, on Raw. Now, just to remind everybody, we're still in the early days of the brand split, and they're trying to really stick to it. So it was a big deal that you got to sort of cross streams, if you will, with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. But for you to give that sort of interview to a newspaper and it not be on TV or the WWE magazine, that feels like that's not Kurt Angle in a scripted promo. That's just the way the real life Kurt Angle thinks, not the character, but the real life Kurt Angle. Am I off base, or is that right? That's really what you felt at the time.
No, you're right. I did want to make a move to Raw. I was on SmackDown for 4 years. I wrestled everybody over there. I didn't get tired of it. I love wrestling those guys. I mean, we had the SmackDown 6 that was a really special group of guys. And, you know, a lot of people, especially The Office, considered SmackDown the B show and Raw was the A show. I didn't consider that. I actually felt that SmackDown was a little bit better than Raw. I thought we were having better wrestling on our show. Not as much involvement with storylines as Raw, but we were a much better wrestling show. But I didn't wrestle Shawn Michaels ever. He was the guy that I had my eye on that I wanted to go over to Raw. And I also Batista and, you know, other guys that, you know, I never got a chance to work with before. And guys like Triple H that I didn't work for 4 years. So I wanted to change. Yes.
Are you able to express that backstage, or did you think, hey, maybe the best way to communicate that is I'll just mention it in some media appearances and maybe I can sort of speak it into existence?
No, I had to talk with Vince, and I told him I had my eyes set on Shawn Michaels, and I wanted to move over to Raw. I knew that Shawn wasn't going to move to SmackDown. You know, there are guys that just didn't want to move over to SmackDown for whatever reason, whether they thought it was the B show or it wasn't as important as Raw. I didn't believe that, but some guys did. And so I knew that Shawn wasn't going to move over to SmackDown. I knew that I'd have to move over to Raw.
Did you think maybe Shawn or other guys, maybe not just Shawn, didn't want to be on SmackDown because of the schedule? Because back then, I think most SmackDowns were taped on a Tuesday. So if you did a house show loop, you would perhaps miss a little more time at home, a little more time with the family. Or did they feel like, hey, it's the B show. It's not on as big of a station as Raw. It's not live. Did they just miss the rush of being on live TV? What do you think it was that made people say, I'd rather be on Raw than SmackDown?
Well, I just think that from a talent standpoint, SmackDown never caught up to Raw at that particular time. It was a newer show, not that new. I mean, I think it ran on for a good 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But it was the newer show, and Raw had such a great tradition. I just believe that they thought that Raw was always going to be the A show and that SmackDown was going to be the B show. It was that simple.
We ought to mention the June 13th Observer recaps this. Angle came out as the new guy. Triple H welcomes him to the big leagues. Of course, we're referencing Raw here. Angle did a woo off with Flair. Then Triple H said it was gimmick infringement. This was lasting forever and getting nowhere until Angle told Triple H that he used to fool around with Triple H's wife behind her back. Zing, the money line. The crowd buzzed about that one. Triple H then laughed about it and said everyone fooled around with my ex-wife. So next week it's Angle versus Batista as the main event. Michaels then came back and said he had no dance partner for the pay-per-view and challenged Angle. Angle accepted to a lukewarm response. Then Angle, Flair, Triple H, and Michaels all had a sloppy brawl. I almost feel like Meltzer just sort of glossed over. The woo off with Flair was hilarious. Tell me about that.
That was a lot of fun. The problem, I didn't want to do it because I couldn't woo anymore. I had 2 neck surgeries, and when they went into my neck, they damaged my voice box a little bit. So I can't do a high pitched voice. The best I could do is this, woo. So I'm trying to woo off with Rick, and he's smoking me. I'm like, holy shit, like this is crazy. Rick is the best wooer in the world. And but I had so much fun doing it. I mean, Ric Flair's a legend, and that's what he got over with, is his woo.
It's pretty crazy when you go back and you think about that woo off and how legendary it became. Let's just take a little bit of a listen here. I know Meltzer didn't put it over big, but I still think it's fun. Let's take a listen.
Because Kurt Angle is back on Raw, baby. Woo! Woo. Nobody says woo around here except me. Woo! 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 Woo!
I know it's silly, but that's just funny to me.
It is funny. Anytime you're wooing off with Ric Flair, it's hilarious.
And of course, we would see him, do that a few more times in his career, and he did it in TNA with Jay Lethal. But that fun woo off moment, did Brian write that one?
Yes, and I think Rick added some flavor to it. He wanted it to go longer. Rick wanted it to go forever, longer than we did it. But we went as long as we could, and that's when I backed away.
It is a little weird though. It feels like there's a lot of moving parts here. Like, hey, Kurt Angle's here, and let's insert him into everything. Let's have a confrontation with Hunter. Let's have one with Rick. Let's do the little woo off thing. And oh, by the way, then Shawn's going to challenge him. And now let's throw Batista in there. It just feels like, man, we're throwing you into the fire feet first.
Oh, the possibilities. They were giving me so many options for my next program. It was like unreal. You have 5 guys in that ring that had an issue with me. And, I'm supposed to be getting a program with Shawn, and it feels like I'm getting one with everybody.
It's really a major moment for the show. I mean, obviously you're one of the best wrestlers in the whole company at this point, one of the biggest names in the company. And now here you are on week 1 in Raw, and you're thrown right in the middle of all of this. Did you know coming in, like when you first have this conversation about coming over to Raw, did Vince say, all right, damn it, Kurt, you're getting your way. We're going to put you with Shawn?
Yes. That's the first thing he said. He told me that you're going to have a program with Shawn to start off, and it's going to be at WrestleMania. And I couldn't have been happier. I was so excited about it. I've been a fan of Shawn Michaels since the day he came back. I believe it was Survivor Series 2000 or 2001. And it ended up 5 guys against him because there was a 5-on-5 match, Survivor Series match. That's a classic matchup. And everybody on his side got eliminated except for him. And he had to go through 5 guys. And the selling and his charisma and everything that he did in that match made me a huge fan. I actually went up to him. I didn't know him at the time, and I wasn't a fan of his because I didn't watch pro wrestling before I started. So I walked up to him and I actually said, hey, man, you're pretty good. Shawn was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm the best. It was classic because, I didn't know who Shawn was. I mean, I knew, from what the wrestlers talked about him and everything, but I didn't know. So, me being clueless, I just told him, hey, you're pretty good. Meanwhile, he's actually the best.
I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. Well, on Raw the next week, you go 1-on-1 with Batista. That ends after just 2 minutes, and it turns into you and Triple H against Batista and HBK. And then, of course, at Vengeance, we get the rematch between you and Shawn. And Shawn evens the score 1-1. You guys go 26 minutes and 11 seconds. Meltzer described it as another near classic performance. He would say they tried to do an offshoot of the Michaels-Benjamin Raw finish, but this wasn't nearly as impressive or well-timed. But still, it was among the best matches of the year, and he gave it 4.5 stars. I'm sure we'll talk about the Vengeance match some other time, but still, a 4.5 star match, 26 minutes in there with Shawn Michaels. How would you compare that to your WrestleMania match?
It was about as good. The only thing I didn't like about the match was the tie. I felt the tie weakened the match, made it mean less. It made it droop, at the end. And you always want a decisive winner. And I didn't care who was going to win in that third match, whether it was Shawn or me. I just wanted a decisive winner, but creative didn't want that. They wanted a tie.
So Meltzer loved the match here as you sort of tie this series up 1-1. You've talked to us before that WrestleMania, that match was really helped put together by Pat Patterson. Was he involved with the match at Vengeance as well?
Yes, he was. Pat Patterson was involved in all 3 matches. He was a very important part of those matches.
The day after that pay-per-view, Vengeance, you're going to come out, and here's the write-up from the Observer. Raw opened with Angle coming out. He teased the idea of challenging Shawn Michaels to a 3rd match as the main event, since they are tied at 1 apiece. Angle explained he didn't have to because his win was by submission at WrestleMania, and Michaels' win was a fluke. And since his win was at Mania, that counts for 2. And Meltzer says, as silly as that sounds, it's actually true. So he says he's done with Michaels, which is good because it means they'll have to wrestle again. He wants Batista. Flair comes out, puts Angle over, saying a bunch of things that he's actually said privately for years. He said if Angle avoids injury for the next few years, he can be the greatest wrestler of all time. He said he would rather his son grew up to be someone like Angle than someone like him, and that he's a big mark for Angle. And somehow this led to heated feelings, and God knows how that happened. Flair promised to bite Angle's fingers, squeeze his testicles, rip his mouth, and gouge his eyes. Flair saying, I'm going to squeeze your testicles and gouge your eye. This is some over the top stuff. Were you having fun with Rick during this?
Oh yeah. Rick's hilarious. I honestly, he wasn't even supposed to say that stuff. It's just came out of his mouth. Rick is so spontaneous, anything that flies out of his mouth, most of it he thought of right at that particular point.
Yeah.
Rick's amazing like that.
Later that night, of course, it's you and Flair. You go 17 minutes and 18 seconds. Meltzer gives it 3.5 stars. And I think this is your first ever match with Ric Flair. Of course, Rick is, before your time. When you're wrestling him here, you're 56 years old, or he's 56 years old. And as you and I are recording, you're not 56 now, but he's even older than you are right now when you're having the match. What was your first impression of being in there with Rick here?
I couldn't believe that he kept up, especially Rick at that particular time wasn't wrestling much. He wasn't getting in the ring. He wasn't training. He wasn't having matches. So he was a little nervous about blowing up, getting tired in the match. And I assured him that I would slow the match down a little bit if we needed to, but we didn't have to. Rick impressed the hell out of me. I mean, what he was able to do at 56 years old is unreal. Rick could probably still work today. he's crazy like that. And, he's one of those guys that is timeless. He never ages. He's always been able to get back in the ring whenever he wants. And, I'm 52 now, and I'm hurting pretty badly. And it amazes me that, Rick's in his 70s now, and he could possibly get in the ring and work better than I can right now.
Please don't give him any ideas. Don't encourage him.
Rick, one more match.
Listen to you. So in this match, though, after saying, I'm going to squeeze your testicles, I'll be damned. He did it. He did a testicle squeeze spot in the match. I'm just curious what this conversation sounds like in the back when a 56-year-old man comes over and says, hey, so Kurt, I'm thinking tonight I'm going to grab you by the nuts. Is that cool? I mean, is that really how it goes?
Well, you know what he said? He said, remember when I said I was going to squeeze your testicles? I said, yes. He goes, we're going to do it tonight. So he probably had that planned all day.
It's unbelievable. It almost feels like, hey guys, I'm going to get Kurt by the nuts. Watch, I'll show you. And then somehow he does it and it worked.
Literally.
So between then and the Shawn Michaels Ironman match, you work a program with Eugene over your gold medals at SummerSlam, which is probably not exactly a highlight of your career. And then you get John Cena and Unforgiven, which I know we'll cover at some point. But did you know the point was always to get you back with Shawn? Did you know this was going to be a trilogy? We're going to have to pay this thing off.
I didn't know. Nobody told me, but I realized that, being with 1-to-1, that's not usually how programs end.
Right.
So I knew eventually down the line we would have another match. I just didn't know when. And I started a program with Eugene, and we continued on with that. And then I went into John Cena for the next pay-per-view. And by then, that's when I was told I was going to work with Shawn with the rubber match.
So it's a big Raw show where it's finally going to happen. And I know what you're thinking. Why would they put that on free TV? That's a pay-per-view match. Well, it was a big show. It was called Homecoming because the WWE had just moved from Spike. Now they're back on USA. They need a reason to pop a number as people would say, to make sure that it's appointment television, that you don't forget that it's not on Spike. Now it's back on USA. And I like the branding, calling it the Homecoming, but it's also worth mentioning that Spike is not taking the departure very well. They're actually counter programming the show with a live UFC. So the UFC was catching fire. We just had Randy Couture on not too long ago, and we talked about what a big deal the Ultimate Fighter was and how it really was a shot in the arm to the UFC. But it's now like the flagship program for Spike. And since they lost their other flagship program, we'll show them, we'll run a special on Monday night head to head. So what does Vince do? He taps two of his best wrestlers that he ever had and said, guys, go put on a show. And that's what we're going to get to do here today. Fire up your Peacock network. You want to go to season 13, episode 40. This went down on October 3rd, 2005. Kurt, what timestamp do you have on your end?
I have 1720.
I'm at 1720 as well. So what we want you to do is pull up Peacock, October 3rd, 2005. That's Monday Night Raw. You can just search for that in your taskbar. Season 13, episode 40, 17 minutes and 20 seconds. And if you're listening at home, please mute your audio. I'll track it through so you can hear it with us whenever we need to hear something. And then Kurt and I will try to entertain you as we watch this unbelievable match here. Here we go, 1720. Kurt, give us a countdown. And when you say play, we'll press play.
All right, here goes the countdown. 3, 2, 1, play.
Hopefully Taylor will get that and get him playing a little bit. Take a deep seat, ladies and gentlemen. You're about to see a classic.
Got the mouthpiece in. When did you start wearing the mouthpiece with some regularity? Was there an incident that made you do it?
When I converted from the funny Kurt Angle to the wrestling machine, and I decided that I needed to have a mouthpiece. And what happened was, add on to that John Cena knocked two of my front teeth out. And I was going to get new ones, the really good ones, the crowns.
Yeah.
But I was wrestling and my dentist said, you might want to get temporaries at the time. So having temporaries, I didn't want to smash those in. So I decided to wear a mouthpiece, and that's why, because Cena knocked my teeth out.
Look at all the legends in the front row. We see Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Hillbilly Jim, Superfly Snuka, Dr. Death. My goodness, what a big showing this is. All the greats.
It's awesome. They're all there to watch me, I guess.
Oh, man. And here's the thing. You got to remember, this is a little unique. We're announcing up front, this is an Ironman match. And, I got to tell you, Kurt, this is my least favorite stipulation. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, and the idea that we're going to see them hook it up is fantastic. But it feels like an Ironman match. The concept removes some of the edge of the seat anticipation. Like when I watch boxing or UFC, or for that matter, pro wrestling, I like to think that, hey man, it could end at any minute. So I don't know what's coming next. I don't want to miss anything. Don't blink. But if it's like, like the NBA playoffs, just tune in for the last 5 minutes and you'll get the gist of it. And that's sort of what a Ironman match feels like to me. Now, I'm not saying I don't enjoy the wrestling that got me there, but in terms of, we're not going to know who won or lost. And I mean, it could happen at any minute. That sort of thinking is completely removed in an Ironman match.
It is. You got to be patient. In an Ironman match, you can't get, overexcited over one finish, because we're going to continue on until the end, and there could be multiple finishes. But you're right. I mean, a regular wrestling match, having one finish, is a lot more exciting. But the Ironman match, this is the next level of wrestling. In other words, this is what you want when you have a third match, a rubber match. Usually you go to gimmicks, ladders, tables, chairs. Shawn and I were thoroughbred wrestlers. It only made sense to have the Ironman match third for the rubber match, because that's what we did best.
I want to mention too, let's remember the time of year this is happening. This is October 3rd. So said plainly, not only do you have the UFC as competition, but Monday Night Football's on. So you guys have extra added pressure, I'm sure of. This better be a damn good match.
You're absolutely right, especially with the NFL starting.
I also wonder, from a wrestling psychology standpoint. So let's pretend for a minute we're in the land of kayfabe, if you will, and you see Kurt take a powder there. There is some psychology that would be different than in a regular match. If it's a one fall scenario and someone has you in a submission match, you might say, well, I don't want to tap out because I don't want to lose this match. But if we know we got to go the distance and I'm hurting pretty good and he's got a good hold on me, I might go ahead and tap so he doesn't hurt me and I'll wind up losing the whole match. I could just lose this one fall, almost forfeit this one fall and say, okay, you got me, but you can't do it again.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a different mentality here. And you see Shawn Michaels climbing to the top rope. Referee Jack Doan is someone we don't hear about much these days, as he's your referee. Any good memories of Jack?
No, Jack was a really solid official, though. I really enjoyed him. He was a really nice guy, and he did an incredible job in the ring. But you were talking about Shawn, the match, being an Ironman match. You're right, but when you have an Ironman match, if you get in a submission hold, most of the time, if it's not the last finish, you're gonna submit early. That makes sense. That's the psychology behind it. You don't want to end up breaking your ankle or breaking your arm because you were stupid enough to hold out from submission because you didn't want to submit when you're going to have a match continue and you're going to be able to get 2 falls and end up beating your opponent. So that's why when you see submissions in Ironman matches, they tap out pretty quickly. It only makes sense.
In a match like this, you've told us that Pat Patterson would have helped put together. Oh man, I love seeing spots like this. You've told us before when you're structuring a match, what's sort of the basic structure. And every time I've had you run us through that, you always explain the double down. And here it is. You're getting the double down, gosh, in the first 4 minutes of the match.
Yes, we are.
But you said the other 2 matches, Pat Patterson was the agent. Do you remember Pat being helpful in this, or by this point, do you guys sort of have a rhythm with each other?
We had a rhythm. Pat let us put together most of it. He just added a few different things to the match, but for the most part, Shawn and I came up with it ourselves.
The part of the magic of any performance, whether it's comedy or it's wrestling or it's fighting, whatever, is timing. And usually in wrestling, you have the luxury of being a little looser, and not trying to point fingers, but we've even talked about it here on the show before. At times, Shawn had a reputation for going a little long because Shawn wanted to make sure the match was great. And so rather than take some stuff out and maybe it affect the match quality, no, if we need to go a little longer, we will. It's live. What are they going to do? But that's totally removed here too if it's a 30-minute time limit and everyone sees the clock the entire time, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The fans are going to see it. We're going to see it. So nobody can go long. It's impossible to go long. You're going to know what you have in that 30 minutes and you got to finish in that 30 minutes.
Of course, a lot of fans hear guys say, well, back in my day, we didn't plan everything out. We just called it in the ring. And you've sort of broken down that you did a hybrid and you've done a little bit of both. With Steve, it would be more off the cuff and improvisation. And with other guys, it would be a little more planned. In a match like this, where you've got a finite amount of time and you've got to hit the mark, it's got to be 30 minutes on the nose. Does that change your preparation as far as what you're quote unquote calling in the ring versus planning?
Well, you have to plan all the finishes. So I think Shawn and I had 4 finishes in this match, I believe.
I'll be honest. I didn't watch it.
2, I believe so. So yeah, you
well, just about the psychology of the timing and the way you've got to decide how much are we calling in the ring and improvising, and then how much are we going to go ahead and script ahead of time, because it feels like the fixed time. Oh my gosh, what a bump and a half you took over the top rope there.
Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, the psychology is different. You have to.
Did you lay everything out that day?
I'm sorry.
Did you lay everything out that day, or are you calling it in the ring?
We laid out the finishes. You have to lay out the finishes, and you have to know which time you want the finish done. So, you want the finish maybe at 18 minutes, then the next one at 14, then the next one at 10 minutes, then the next one at 6, and then you have, the time running out. So you have to plan the finishes, but you have so much to remember in those finishes and your false finishes that you have to call the rest of the match. You just have to feel it. You have to go out there because you're going 30 minutes and there are going to be 4 finishes. Those 4 finishes only take up about 2 minutes of the 30. So you have to be able to improvise quite a bit in an Ironman match.
We just saw it even in the replay. I reacted to it and you did too. I think we're a little out of sync. That's on my bad. I'm running too many programs to keep us on track here today. But when you go over the top rope a minute ago, it looks like you almost over rotate and you crash and burn.
I do almost every time I do it. I don't know why. I never perfected it, but it does look pretty badass. It looks pretty brutal. So
it looks brutal. That's what I wanted to ask. Is that, I mean, I know it sounds silly. Is that devastating? Does that hurt really bad? Or at that point, are you just sort of callous to it and it's just another day at the office?
I'm comfortable doing it, or I wouldn't keep doing it. I do it all the time. So, if I thought I was going to get hurt, I wouldn't do it anymore.
Oh man, the big power bomb into the turnbuckles. I don't think I saw you do that a ton. Was that something you were nervous about doing, or did you have confidence doing that move?
Well, with Shawn, he's such a pro. He gets up for you. He's not that heavy, probably 195 pounds, maybe 200 pounds. So I was confident in being able to do it with him. With someone like John Cena or Batista, it'd be a lot harder. But with Shawn, he gets up for you pretty good. He's really light and he's not really that heavy.
So it looks like you were trying to belly to belly him off as he's seated on the top rope there, but instead, if memory serves, you're going to hit another move here off the top rope on Shawn, and there it goes.
It's a converted angle slam from the top rope.
And I think that's going to be pinfall number 1. Yeah, I remember that. It was such a big thing to see you do that maneuver off the top rope. It just, I don't know why, but anytime somebody goes to the top rope, it's that added sense of danger.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting too, especially when you hit your finish up there. That's a pretty cool finish to have. Doing the angle slam from the tarp is different than doing it from the top rope, and it looks a lot more brutal from the top rope.
And there you see, we went to a commercial break, and now we're getting a hold. And I know some fans would say, "Oh, it's a rest hold." But you do need to work a hold if you're doing an Ironman match. You can't wrestle at a frantic pace for 30 minutes. And
the fans will get bored. You have to slow it down, speed it up,
yes.
It down, speed it up. You have to give them different times that where they can cheer and get behind the baby face. And Shawn was the baby face at the time. So putting him in a hold, the fans see that, okay, that he's selling and he's down underneath, and they start cheering for him. And that's a certain psychology we have in pro wrestling.
A match like this, what are you going over with the referee ahead of time? Are you going through all the different finishes, or does he just know how the match ends?
No, we have to go through all the finishes. The referee has to have a good memory too, because if he counts the wrong ones, it's going to screw us up.
I see.
So, let's just say that Shawn kicked out a little late on that one, and the ref thought it was the finish. That would end up being one of the finishes.
Yeah.
And, our whole forte would be screwed up.
In this era, do you remember there being a lot of communication from Vince, or I guess we would just say Gorilla or the back, through the referee? I think they're all wearing IFBs, but do you remember when you're wrestling on TV, we'll call it the mid 2000s here, that they would relay messages to you in the middle of a match through the referee?
Only if Vince saw something that he didn't like or something that he wanted us to do. It didn't happen very often, but like when I debuted at Survivor Series in 1999, Vince is the one that told me to go outside the ring during the match, told the ref, tell Kurt to go outside the ring and grab the microphone and say, "You do not boo an Olympic gold medalist." And so he does it at certain times. It doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while he'll do it.
And it almost feels like when he has you do it on your debut, it's almost like a test, is it not?
Oh my gosh. I was ready to crap my pants. I was so nervous. He told me to go out. They never taught me how to cut promos.
Right.
Very little. And, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. And they were telling me to go outside, grab the microphone and, you know, say a few things. And I was like, why do I have to do that? I just want to wrestle this match. So it can get a little, heart-wrenching at times, you know. Nerve-wracking is the word I'm trying to use.
Well, there it is. You saw Shawn Michaels reverse the angle slam into a front rolling cradle for the pinfall. So we're tied up one apiece. You're arguing with the referee. This is good stuff. And now, yeah, we're going to keep the whole thing going here. We're about halfway through the match now. You see the time clicking down. Are you keeping a close look at the big jumbotron just to see where you are time wise?
Always, you know, you always have to be aware of the time. You don't want it to sneak by you, because if you end up doing a finish too late, you're gonna end up having finishes back to back. It won't make sense unless you want finishes back to back, like what we did with Shawn right there, where I angle slammed him from the top rope. Then I got him in the ankle lock immediately after that, and he rolled me up. That's a quickie. Yeah. So that is acceptable, but you know, you want to make sure you don't do it too close together.
We see Shawn Michaels here still sporting the long hair. Of course, we know in more recent years, he decided to adopt the Kurt Angle look.
Yes.
Were you giving Shawn some good natured ribbing about him, clinging to that hair? Maybe a little expiration.
You know what? I didn't know Shawn that well to be able to rib him about it, but you know, he was going thin quite heavily, probably worse than I was. And it was pretty hard to watch him keep that long hair. I understand, you know, that's part of his character, but it was time to shave the head.
Of course, you're sporting a singlet here. Shawn has a different type of attire. He doesn't have what I would even call long tights. He's just got long pants. Could you have imagined wrestling in something like what Shawn would wrestle in? It feels like that. Yeah.
No, you know, I don't even know what they are. They look like disco pants. I have no idea what they are. He liked them baggy. I don't know why. You know, I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing baggy pants.
Well, I think the old thing in wrestling is, or as I've heard guys say, it's an upper body business, kid. And Rick was always pulling his knee pads down below the knee because he said he had what he called minuscule calves. So maybe Shawn didn't want to have anyone be self-conscious, or he was self-conscious that he didn't have the most muscular legs in the world. So he wore the big pants. But it's weird to me that you're out here in what looks like amateur wrestling stuff, right? The singlet and the whole deal. Yeah. And he's got, I don't even know, like rock and roll pants on. And it feels like you would think, man, that would be way constrictive on your movements and things like that.
Yeah, I think it would be. I've never done it, so I don't know, but Shawn's moving pretty good though. I can't argue with that.
Oh, he's making it work. I'm just saying from your perspective, it feels like Kurt Angle would never wrestle in pants. That's just
no.
Yeah.
If anything, I'll wrestle in my underwear.
Yeah, less, not more.
Yeah, less is better.
What's the, you know, we've heard before that I think Jim Ross maybe spoiled some of the magic once upon a time. I think this might be another finish here. That Mankind, Mick Foley, had like a friendly mandible claw and then a not so friendly mandible claw, where he would, on some occasions, actually stick his fingers in the guy's mouth, and other times he would just fold at the knuckle. So it didn't actually go in; it just looked like it. Is there a working, hey, I like this guy, he's going to get a certain type of ankle lock, or hey, this guy was sniffing me a little bit, I might put a little more torque on that one?
No, I never done that. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want anybody being offended by me trying to break their ankle, because it is a pretty, it's a pretty intense move.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right. I don't even apply it right. I don't know if you remember, Kenny Shamrock called me on it during our show.
Yeah.
Had our podcast with him. And he said, you don't even put it in right. I said, if I do, I'm going to break their ankle. He said, you're absolutely right. You do get it. And I did, because when you apply that the proper way, all you have to do is torque it once. You could break the ankle. So I would hold the top of the toes instead of the side.
Yeah.
That way I wouldn't put too much pressure on the ankle.
Do you think in hindsight, the match was hurt because you had commercial breaks? I mean, commercial breaks are part of television. That's the reason you're on television, is to have commercials. But when you've got big competition like Monday Night Football and the UFC, do you think in hindsight, the move in a match like this may have been, hey, let's sort of front load the commercials or back load the commercials and let's let this run uninterrupted?
I would prefer that, because you're right. It does bring the match down. You're getting commercial breaks, excessive ones, probably 3 or 4 in this Ironman match. And that's going to bring the match down. That's going to take away the intensity and the meaningfulness of the match. And, but there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I think that they could have overloaded the commercials on 1 hour and let us run our 30 minutes without any commercial breaks. But that never happens. So I don't know if it ever will.
So as a reminder, you won at WrestleMania, he won at Vengeance. So your trilogy here, because this is what we would call in fighting the rubber match, you're tied at 1 apiece. And seemingly this is a great way to blow it off, because we're going to have multiple falls. It's going to be an Ironman match. But as we know, even though the scoreboard right now says 2-1, I think Shawn is going to get another pinfall on you, and we're going to be tied at 2 apiece. Meltzer would say the match wasn't close to the level of their 2 prior big matches. TV commercial breaks didn't help, nor did the flat finish. Unless they're going to rematch the 2 before Taboo Tuesday, it makes no sense for Angle not to win, since he's getting the next title shot. And you were in line, you're the new kid on the block here on Raw. You are going to be in line for the next title shot, but you don't win. So even after being tied at 1 match apiece, now even in your Ironman match, it's going to be ruled a draw. Did you find that creative out day of? Were you disappointed?
I think Shawn and I were both disappointed, but we agreed to do it because, it wouldn't hurt either one of us.
Right.
It did affect the match. So that was the hardest part, because anytime you wrestle Shawn Michaels, it's going to be a classic. Unfortunately, this match with the crappy finish, I hate to say, because we tied, there was no decisive winner. It took away from the match a little bit. There's no doubt about that. This match is really good, but it wasn't our best match, and that's because we tied.
So before we get down to the final 4 minutes, we're tied at 2 apiece. We had the big elbow off the top. We got the sweet chin music. 1, 2, 3. Shawn Michaels scores the pin. So we're 2-2 across the board. The crowd is standing. They're on their feet. People know as the clock starts to tick down, hey, this is where we really got to pay attention, because whoever wins next is going to win this thing, especially when it's 2-2. I mean, at this point, it could be 0-0, 1-1. It's the same. The next fall wins the match in all likelihood, since there's only 4 minutes, and you're going to do, your damnedest to have the very best match you can, but it is a flat feeling when there is no winner. So coming out of this, even though okay, I'm challenging for the title, did you just kind of assume, or did Shawn kind of assume, well, we'll get to do it again someday, probably a pay-per-view down the road or what have you?
We didn't know. It was one of those things where, okay, I guess we walk away, we tie, and we're gonna go 1-1, 1-1. And but I knew that eventually we would have another match. I believe we did. I think Daivari caused me to lose that match. I don't know if you remember that, Conrad, but there was a 4th match, and Daivari ended up causing me to lose that match. I can't remember when it was, but I think it was about a month or 2 after this match. So this wasn't necessarily the 3rd match. Actually, Shawn beat me at a match that Daivari accidentally nailed me instead of Shawn, because he was my manager at the time. I'm not sure when that match occurred, but I know it was after this.
Yeah, my research, it looks like it happened November 7th. But you know what? No, yeah. That's when he came back over. November 7th, Daivari returned to Raw. He was Kurt Angle's anointed special guest referee in a tag match between Shawn and John Cena against Angle and Chris Masters. And then, yeah, you started to do like this sort of heel referee thing, which I guess is kind of fun. But at this point, you know, the trilogy of great wrestling matches, you know, wrestling fans think about not Shawn Michaels, but Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. And even though they did wrestle years later at Spring Stampede in 94, people still think about 89 as being the trilogy of matches that people talk about. And then later they would talk about, you know, Rock and Austin at WrestleMania 15, 17, and 19. And in more recent years, they would talk about Okada and Omega. And this is sort of, you know, what we were doing in the mid 2000s with that type of conversation. And, after a big match at WrestleMania and then another pay-per-view and then an Ironman match on Raw, you just assume, well, they're going to main event a SummerSlam at some point or a Royal Rumble or something. And we didn't get that.
No, unfortunately, I think we should have.
Yeah.
Especially with this match ending in a tie. I believe that Shawn and I would have been happier with the decisive winner.
On my counter, I'm showing that we've got a minute 20 left. We're going to go ahead and track this last bit and see JR do what he does best.
But can Michaels hold on with a minute of change remaining? In the center of the ring, he's going to have to tap out. 60 seconds remaining with the score tie. I can only imagine how much pain Shawn Michaels is in right now. We can see the heart that's right now. He's going to tap. Shawn Michaels is going to tap. Michaels is reaching for every ounce of adrenaline he can muster. 42 seconds. Can he hold on? There's no way he can last this long. Let's try to reverse the pressure. Try to roll toward the ropes. And look at Kurt Angle's like a boa constrictor. He's wrapped around Shawn Michaels' entire leg. 30 seconds. There's no getting Kurt Angle off. Oh, exactly. They're right to the face. That big boot right to the face of Kurt Angle. Michaels kicked his way free. There's only 15 seconds left. We got it again. Michaels be into the ankle lock. Can Michaels hold on? For under 10. 45. Sweet chin music. It's over. It's over. All of that sounds. Michaels had it. Wait, what? The time has expired.
The 30 minutes has expired. Therefore, the match is a draw.
What? Nothing settled in the rubber match with Michaels and Angle. Each have won. This one a 30-minute Ironman time limit draw. All Shawn Michaels needed was 3 more seconds to win the rubber match. Maybe less than that. Maybe just 2 more seconds.
So the crowd's booing and chanting bullshit, and Shawn Michaels is asking for a microphone. Let's listen.
No way, Dallas. What is that? Exactly. Let's go to sudden death. Come on.
Uh-oh. I would love to see that. Michaels wants sudden death. And Michaels, that means one fall to the finish. With no clock. Michaels ready to fight. There's Angle just walking away from this confrontation. Stevie. This is a
Of course, throughout your career, Kurt, even when you were a bad guy, fans want to cheer you. But when you wave off the rubber match, it cements in everyone's mind, oh no, let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com. He's still that heel. We still hate it, right?
Yes. There are times the fans hate my guts and there are times they absolutely love me. And at that particular time that night, they hated my guts.
In hindsight,
It was an exciting finish. I really enjoyed this. I thought having the ankle lock on him for a good minute, him holding off, and then sweet chin music at the end, almost, you know, if it was 2 seconds earlier, he would have won. You know, this was a really cool, exciting finish for a tie.
yeah, as far as draws go, I don't think he could have done much better. And I do like the whole time limit expiration thing, as we said, with the sweet chin music. The referee starts to make the count, but the bell rings. I do want to ask, though, in hindsight, do you think this should have been the main event? Because the main event that night was John Cena versus Eric Bischoff in a no DQ match for the world title that went 2 minutes and 44 seconds. We see Shawn Michaels hugging all the legends at ringside there, but you know, you just had a 30-minute clinic here. And what went on last, the main event, was John Cena and Eric Bischoff for less than 3 minutes.
You know, all I could think of was at this particular time, they were really, 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 really trying to push Cena.
Yeah.
So they had their eyesights on John for that whole year. And this was the beginning of the John Cena dynasty. So, you know, I understand why they did that. You know, it's like, you know, when I became the top babyface, they started putting me on last all the time.
Yeah.
But, and John was the top babyface in the company. At least he was upcoming. He was pretty close to being a top babyface at this time. And Vince McMahon wanted to make sure he was. So he always put him in a position to make him look like the top guy.
You know, when you have a great opponent like this and you've got plenty of time, they gave you 30 minutes. You've had 2 pay-per-view matches, one at really the granddaddy, you know, the biggest of them all, WrestleMania, and then one on Vengeance, which is still a pay-per-view. But now this one, more people are going to see, right? More people see Raw than they see the pay-per-views back then. So this is a big opportunity. And in hindsight, I wonder, do you think it would have been a better match if it wasn't an Ironman match?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, we did as good as you possibly could with an Ironman match.
Absolutely.
But I think it being a tie really messed things up. I would have preferred just a regular match for a rubber match with a decisive winner. Yes, I think it would have been better.
Let's do some questions. Instagram a wrestling historian wants to know, why didn't they make this an hour instead? Would you have been an advocate for that? Or do you think 30 minutes when it comes to TV time is probably enough?
Well, I did an hour with Brock on SmackDown, I believe in 2003.
Right.
And it was way too long. You know, having Ironman matches, when you put it on Raw or SmackDown, that's half of your show.
Yeah.
Right there. So, you know, I don't think that an hour, we didn't need an hour, even though I would have loved to wrestle Shawn for an hour. That would have been the greatest Ironman match of all time. But, you know, 30 minutes is all we needed. So that's where we went.
Here's an interesting question from Lopez that I hadn't thought about. He says, was the Titantron more of a distraction in a match like this? You know, we were acknowledging that you had to look at that to sort of keep up with your time, and that isn't as a resource for you. But if you strip away the Iron Man stipulation, you're never looking at the Titantron. So I like that it adds to the psychology of an Iron Man match, but I wonder, did it also perhaps hurt the match, in your opinion?
I don't think it hurt the match. You know, you always have to check on the times to make sure that you're in the right frame of time at that particular point. So you do have to check on the clock every once in a while to make sure you're not too late with everything. But does it hurt the match? You know, you have to make it perfectly clear that what time is left, even for the fans, for them to understand the psychology. Because if you didn't show the timer and the fans didn't see it and we didn't see it, then there's no psychology to it. There's no, you know, you don't know when it's going to finish, and you don't know how much time is left. So that's pretty difficult.
One last one. This one's from Jay Newsman. And I got to say, I never even considered this, but since you just laid the groundwork and said, well, Cena knocked 2 of my teeth out once. How did the Sweet Chin Music feel? I guess what he's asking is, did Shawn ever get you with one by accident?
No, he is not stiff. You don't even feel it. It barely touches you. That's what makes him such a pro. I don't know if he's ever stiffed anybody.
Yeah.
Shawn is that good. He's able to gauge shots, punches, kicks, his athleticism in the ring. He's unbelievable. I mean, he does things that nobody else can do. And he's the jack of all trades. Across the board, he's the best overall entertainer in the history of wrestling. Ric Flair's up there, and Eddie Guerrero, and then Chris Jericho too. You know, especially late in his career, the way he's going. But you know, Shawn's probably in a class of his own.
When we're talking about Chris Jericho and late in his career and all this, as you and I are recording this, AEW just put on a 30-minute match themselves that went to a draw. And a lot of people thought that was a dream match. Bryan Danielson, his first match in AEW away from WWE, and Kenny Omega, the AEW world champion. Did you have a chance to see their 30-minute match earlier this week?
No, not yet, but I'm going to watch it. I know that had to be phenomenal.
I can't wait to get your take on it someday, because 30-minute matches on TV are really a rarity.
It is.
But who better than those two? And of course, back in 05, who better than Kurt Angle and Kenny Omega? But I know if you're going to be in a 30-minute match, you're probably going to need plenty of protein. And that's why we recommend physicallyfit.com. Go check it out right now. You got chicken snacks and you got Snack Smart. Now, what is Snack Smart? Well, it's organic plant protein. So if you don't want the chicken, no big deal. We got you with plants, baby. Each bag is only $9.99. Each bag has 7 servings. And when you use our promo code AnglePod, you save 20% off your entire order. So you're looking at like $1 a snack. And what flavors you've got? Spicy buffalo and blue cheese is Kurt's favorite. It's high in protein and low in all the stuff that's bad for you. Sour cream and onion, of course, with bagel pieces and rice sticks. We got honey mustard with pretzel pizzas. And we've also got brown sugar cinnamon with pretzels. And I think the cinnamon swirl and brown sugar are probably the favorite for the kids, the ladies. Everybody's loving that.
Yeah, we have a great product. I want to thank everybody for supporting me buying this product. Go to physicallyfit.com. You're going to absolutely love the chicken snacks or the Snack Smart Crispy Protein Bites, the organic protein bites. We have both organic protein and we have the chicken protein. So go order them and enjoy them.
Physicallyfit.com. Use that promo code AnglePod. You'll save 20% off your entire order. So whether you order 1 bag or 10 bags, it's 20% off. You can save yourself a boatload of cash. And also too, things are very affordable over at kurtanglebrand.com. When you go there, click on shop and you'll see all that Kurt has to offer. And he's got a wide variety of stuff you don't see everybody else do, like video messages, like birthday cards, like autographed 8x10s. Heck, you can even send something to him. He'll autograph it and send it back. All the details are at kurtanglebrand.com. But now you've got some new t-shirts, new swag, new merchandise, and some fun items like the little cowboy hats, the milk cartons. There's something for everybody at kurtanglebrand.com, right, Kurt?
Yes. Go to kurtanglebrand.com. If you have an autograph you want me to, or a photo or a title belt that you want me to sign, send it to the address on the website and I'll sign it for you. I'll personalize it. Send me a small donation with a prepaid postage envelope and I'll get it back to you.
Check it out. It's kurtanglebrand.com. And I want to mention, if you're looking for more Kurt Angle, you can find it at adfreeshows.com. We do a bonus piece of content every single month. And you even get to do an interactive Zoom with Kurt Angle. That's right. He's got his camera on. You got your camera on, and you can ask Kurt Angle whatever you want. You can't do that anywhere else, but you can at adfreeshows.com.
And I'm doing that September 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Boom. There you go. You never know when you're going to get another one, but check it out. Kurt Angle is on adfreeshows.com. Greatly appreciate the time today, man. Can't wait for next week. I don't know what I expected watching old wrestling with you, but this has been like the highlight of us doing shows together. I love to watch your old stuff. It takes us back to our nostalgic times as a fan, and you get to sort of relive some of your glory days. It's a win for everybody.
It is a win for everybody. I absolutely love watch-alongs.
Next week, though, we're doing something a little different. We're going to talk about Bound for Glory 2011. And this was an interesting time in TNA. We've been talking about TNA a little bit with Jeff Jarrett and a little bit with Eric Bischoff. 2011 had you on top as the world champion, taking on Bobby Roode. The undercard had Sting and Hulk Hogan with Ric Flair in his corner. AJ Styles working an I Quit match with Christopher Daniels. Mr. Anderson is in there with Bully Ray. Rob Van Dam's in there with Jerry Lynn. Austin Aries is in there with Brian Kendrick. You had a loaded roster here in 2011, and we're going to talk about it next week, Kurt.
Yeah, we absolutely had a loaded roster. It was one of the best rosters I've ever been a part of. That's part of the reason why I wanted to go over to TNA. They had so much talent there. I knew I could expand my wings and wrestle other guys I never wrestled before,
including Bobby Roode. They're going to go 14 minutes and 15 seconds. We're going to talk about the build of that pay-per-view and the event itself. I guess you might even call Bound for Glory like TNA's WrestleMania. But Sting versus Hulk Hogan, it happened, and Ric Flair was in their corner, and we're going to be breaking it down next week. Bound for Glory 2011 coming your way right here on the Kurt Angle Show. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.